name's Reea. I'm an intuitive empath and a life and relationship coach and hypnotherapist. And today I've got a video for you on the red flags that you need to look out for when you begin dating someone new. When you're looking out for narcissists or psychopaths in particular, and if you have a history of dating narcissists or psychopaths, you're going to want to know what these red flags are. Red flag number one when you begin dating someone new is saying no. The one big thing that narcissists and psychopaths have in common is they don't like it when you say no. You know, there was a time when I used to think to myself, you know, you should break up with someone early on in the relationship, because when you break up with them, you find out who they really are. If someone behaves really badly when you break up with them, no matter what that reason is that you break up with them, but you know, they carry on like dickheads and they start stalking you, or they start sending you text messages criticizing you. That happened to me once. You know, I had a thing with somebody, and before I had the fling, I said to them, you know, okay, so it was a one-night stand. Before I had the one-night stand with them, I said, it's only one night. This is not going anywhere. We are not going to end up in a relationship. This is what it is. And afterwards, he called me and said, can we have a coffee? And I thought, okay, well, that's nice. I can do that. I can have a coffee. And so I had a coffee with him. And when I was having a coffee with him, I could see his hands shaking as he was picking up the cup of coffee, right? His hands are really shaking. And I'm looking at him thinking, okay, this is a bit sus. He excused the shaking hands by saying that he was nervous. Sounds sweet, doesn't it? Nervous to be with me. It wasn't nerves. It was alcoholism. It was mid-morning and he hadn't had a drink. And I later found out that my fears were correct when I managed to speak to a friend of his. Yep, he was an alcoholic. So we had coffee, and I reiterated at that coffee that this wasn't going to go anywhere. We weren't going to have a relationship. He was like 15 years younger than me. Okay, for a fling. I wasn't into having a relationship with someone who was 15 years younger than me, even though there were other red flags, right? And then he started texting me. And when I politely affirmed the boundary again and said, no, I'm sorry, this isn't going to go anywhere, I don't want to catch up with you again, he bombarded me with messages telling me he felt sorry for me, that I was so closed off to having relationships, and really criticizing me and saying all these awful things. And he didn't know me from a bar of soap. We'd spent one night together and I hadn't told him anything about my life. So if you really want to find out if someone's a narcissist or a psychopath, find a reason early in the relationship to say no. Don't justify your decision. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Just really politely say something like, no, that doesn't work for me. And leave it at that and see how they react. You can pick up pretty early on that they don't react well. That they may even pretend to behave nicely at that point, but you can see that they're really rattled. And they may leave it, and then they may come back and try to coerce you, keep trying to talk you into saying yes, manipulate you, come up with excuses, cry, I don't know, whatever. But if someone can't accept a no, that's a huge red flag. Red flag number two for me when it comes to narcissists and psychopaths is lack of empathy. Now, one of the world's leading experts on narcissism, who is himself a narcissist, Sam Vaknin, says that narcissists do have empathy, right? Once upon a time, we thought narcissists had no empathy. In other words, they couldn't put themselves in someone else's place, walk a mile in your moccasins, feel what you're feeling. Sam Vaknin says that's not true, that narcissists do have empathy, except they have a cold empathy. So they might be able to see that you are feeling sad. They might be able to even put that into words. Oh, you're feeling sad right now. But they don't care. They don't behave like they care. They don't come over and put their arm around you and you know, show you sympathy or empathy want to listen to your story, want to understand how you're feeling the way you're feeling, okay? No empathy. They may even behave really strangely if you've got something going on in your life where you need a little bit of emotional support. So thinking of an experience from my lifetime with one of my narcissists, I was having a birthday party for my daughter at the time, and I think she was about 8 or 9 or something like that. I had a house full of kids, and I was in the middle of the birthday party. We had not long been dating, and I got a phone call to say that my grandmother had died. We weren't expecting her to die. She was 84, which is not that old, really. She was in a nursing home, but I was very attached to this grandmother. She had spent a lot of time living with us when I was younger. She was the one that taught me about reincarnation. She inspired my love of history. She spent a lot of time with us. So I was very, very upset when I heard that she died. And here I was with a house full of children. So what did I do? I called the guy that I was dating at the time and explained to him what had happened. He immediately said he'd come over. I thought, lovely, isn't this great? He came over. He pulled me up onto his knee and he tried to make me laugh. He was cracking jokes, trying to tickle me and make me laugh when I just heard the news that my grandmother had died. And I was feeling naturally sad and grieving. I couldn't believe it. I didn't see the red flag. I overlooked it, and I ended up in a relationship with this man, and I had a child with him. Big mistake. A more appropriate response to being called over to my house in the midst of all that was to allow me to slink off into the corner with my tears and maybe a glass of wine while he took over running the birthday party. That would have been much more helpful. Certainly not making me cry. So, lack of empathy, lack of warm empathy is a big red flag. Number 3 red flag for me when it comes to narcissists and psychopaths is a sense of entitlement. They're arrogant and they're grandiose, so they think their shit doesn't stink. They think they're amazing. They think they are better than everybody else. There is a difference between true self-esteem and self-confidence and really loving yourself, and the kind of grandiosity and entitlement that these people show. Jesus Christ loved himself, but that does not mean he thought he was better than everybody else. Apparently, he thought we were all the same and that we were quite as capable of self-love as he was, and that's what he preached, okay? If we're Christians, we all know that story. But narcissists hold themselves above everybody else. They deserve nothing but the best. They're better than everybody else. They're very grandiose, and they will tell you how amazing they are in a really creepy, weird kind of way. My number 4 big red flag is running down their exes and telling you that their exes are crazy. Look, there are other crazy people out there. I've been in a relationship with crazy people, but I'm not going to tell someone that at the beginning of a relationship. I am not going to run down my exes because it makes me seem like a narcissist. So, I live in Australia, and in Australia, the C word is fairly commonly used as a form of expression by a lot of men in Australia, particularly in blokey world. If your man calls his ex the C word, that's a red flag. If they swear about their exes, they raving on with stories about how bad their exes were and they really seem to hate them, maybe they're going to treat you exactly the same one day, or they're going to be talking to their next partner about you in the same way. Don't believe what they tell you when they're talking about other people. So I always tell women, see things through your own eyes. Don't believe the stories that people tell you when you get into relationships with them, particularly about their ex-relationships and those sorts of things. You know, people say one thing and then they act in a completely different way, and it's the actions that tell you the truth about somebody, not what they're saying. So never believe their stories about their ex-partners. Or nothing is ever their fault. They blame everybody else. And in relationship, you'll start to know if you spend any time with them, when things start to go wrong in the relationship, or there are disagreements or any of that stuff, it's never their fault. It's always your fault. Be really on the watch for that one, because that's crazy making. Number 6, they are angry people. They have temper tantrums, particularly if you've said no. If they're not getting their own way, they fly into a rage, and it can be scary. Road rage is a biggie. Anyone with road rage, you know, we all drive around the car and swear at other people occasionally when we're in a bad mood. We probably all do that, okay? I'm talking about, you know, something that really makes you feel bad. Don't forget the biggest protection you've got in relationships is that you trust your gut. So if they're flying into a rage and you get a creepy feeling, or you are actually frightened, or your gut is telling you that something's not quite right here, listen to it. The next red flag when it comes to narcissists is that they get upset or needy when you want time out for yourself, you want to hang out with your friends or family, or you've got things to do. Because one of the things that they do is that, you know, in that love bombing process in the early part of the relationship, when you've just met, is that they want to be with you all the time. So if you actually try and put down a boundary and say, oh, I'm going out with my girlfriends tonight, you'll feel uncomfortable again. Notice that feeling in your gut. They don't like it at all. The next one is invading your boundaries. You know, we're always told that having healthy boundaries in a relationship is an absolute must, and that's because narcissists and psychopaths and abusive people invade your boundaries. So they might do things like, what's a common boundary invasion? They want to take up all of your time. They ask you intrusive questions about your finances. They want to look at your text messages. They invade your personal space. You know, they might look through your drawers or look at your mail or be reading your Facebook page if you leave your computer open and looking at your Facebook messages or something like that. So they cannot respect boundaries, because boundaries to them means that you have a part of your life that they have no control over, and they don't want that. They might invade your boundaries by being very opinionated about your children, you know, telling you your children are naughty and how you should bring them up. None of their business. If you're not living with them, then they have no right to have an opinion about your children at all. So that's a boundary invasion. Another red flag when it comes to narcissists is that they are really hot and passionate and sexy in the beginning of the relationship and can't get enough of you. And then as you get into the relationship, they go stone cold and they actually don't want to have sex with you. Narcissists have huge issues when it comes to sex and intimate relationships. They are really frightened of being intimate with you. They are frightened of you having power over them in any way. And so having a normal sexual relationship with a woman is often beyond them. So they run hot and cold when it comes to sex. Another big red flag is cruelty to animals. We know this about psychopaths and sociopaths, not so much narcissists, but if someone is cruel to animals, they actually inflict harm on animals or show no empathy, that's a big red flag. Now, some people don't like animals, so if they just don't like them, that's not it. I'm talking about real cruelty. The next big red flag is telling you they love you really early on in the relationship. You might think that you're soulmates, and that's why they've told you that they love you, And I know that in our society there are stories about people getting married after a week or a month of knowing each other and living happily ever after. But that's the exception, not the rule, okay? Mostly narcissists will love bomb you in the beginning. That's what they do. That's one of their ploys. And part of that is being, overtly verbal about your personality traits and how you look. And they're all full of compliments. My last narcissist told me he loved me after a week. Yep. I was creeped out at the time. I certainly didn't respond. I didn't tell him that I loved him. Something inside me was secretly happy. So just be careful of that. As a general rule, I don't know, is it normal to wait until you've known someone for 2 or 3 months before you tell them that you love them? Leave me a comment down below. I'd really like to hear what you think about that one. The next big red flag is wanting to move in really quickly. I know that young people do that now. It's a millennial thing, isn't it? They start dating or they start hanging out, and then next minute you know they're actually living together. But be careful, because that is a narcissistic move, right? They want to move in with you really quickly because they want to control you. They want to take over your life. They want to have power over you and be in control. So if somebody wants to move in with you really quickly, avoid it at all costs. I know it's nice when you first have a relationship, you want to be together. I understand that. But really, you shouldn't be moving in with anyone that you haven't known for about a year. It really takes a year to get to know somebody. People can be on their best behavior and hide who they really are for a very long time. I once had someone do that to me for 6 months. He was Mr. Perfect. He didn't step out of his role or put a foot wrong for 6 months, and then the real him came out. The same thing sometimes happens if you're dating someone and they seem like the perfect partner, and then you marry them and you see who they really are. And that's because when you marry someone, their beliefs about marriage and all those role things start coming out. So, yep, be careful. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Please leave me a comment. I reply to all comments and I'd love to hear from you. And share it with your friends if you think it's going to be helpful for them.